Saint Anger was released on June 5th, 2003 by the once greatest band of thrash metal, Metallica. You know, ever since Metallica released their disappointing eponymous album in 1991, I had hoped that Metallica would release another good album. Their first and only good one being Kill 'Em All, because, well, the other ones are shit. I mean, sure, the following three albums, right, The Lightning and the other two, are good albums, but they're just not as great as Kill 'Em All. I had high anticipation for this album because it wasn't that corny hard rock shit like Load and Reload were. It was actual heavy metal. After listening to Saint Anger, I gotta say, I am so ashamed of wearing this shirt, let alone have it lying around. Why? Because instead, we get this piece of shit that was supposed to be an album. First, let's look at the case. Every time I look at this artwork, I fucking cringe. I mean, just look how bad it is. I could do a better job of making album artwork. And I'm not even a novice when it comes to art. I mean, just look. I usually disagree with the PMRC label on metal albums, but in this case, I really couldn't give a shit about it. Okay, actually, I take it back. I do agree with them this time. This album's a piece of shit, so might as well put that parental advisory warning. I'll admit, though, this part of the case I dig. Just not the rest. Ugh. Alright, now it's time to get into the literal shit. I actually dig some of the tracks, like Frantic. The music's not so bad. Some of my favorite tracks are even thrash influenced, and I love thrash metal. Only thing is, in the first couple of tracks, I hear some sort of trash can in the background. Like if it was part of the music, as if it were replacing the snare, because I don't hear the snare. So I thought it was only for a couple of songs, so I shrugged it off, thinking that it would just pass through. Then I heard it again in the third track, and when that happened, I thought, it's not gonna stop, is it? It's in the whole album. What the hell happened? It's like Lars ruined the snare and couldn't afford another snare, nor did he have a spare one lying around, and decided to hire that clown from that shithole Slipknot as the new snare. And that's not the only problem with this shithole of an album. Some of the clean sections are a bit awkward, especially in the title track, Saint Anger. They just start off very brutal, with the exception of the trash can. Ugh. Anyway, and then all of a sudden, it abruptly shifts tone faster than in Samurai Cop. I also noticed that Metallica were trying to sound like other bands. For example, in Dirty Window, which I actually dig, I couldn't help but think of Megadeth when I hear the first verse. Seriously, just compare this song to Megadeth's Mechanics.
I see my reflection in the window. It looks different, so different than what you see. You mess me with my station, and you brought your motor me. You're a burner, yeah, real Monaco.
Okay, sort of. They also seem to go for a new metal song for the majority of this album, especially in the last half of it. And I couldn't help but ask myself this question. Are they trying to sound like posers? Metallica is trying to sound like fucking posers. The vocals just come off as lazy, though some of the lyrics are alright, yet forgettable. The others are either laughable or just as bad as the vocals. As I've mentioned before, Frantic is an awesome track, but why does James sound like a fucking clock every time he says frantic?
Tick, 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 tock, frantic, tick, 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 tock.
Look at this. Madly in anger with you? Well, like I'm madly angry that this shitstorm of a mess some call a song exists. Oh look, the band trying to look badass. Why is he here? He didn't even record on this piece of shit. It's actually Bob Rock. Fuck me. Hell yeah, fuck you, Metallica. All I have to say is that the last two paragraphs of these lyrics from The Unnamed Feeling best describe how listeners, including myself, feel about this shit. Feel free to pause, by the way. Another problem with this album is that it has a raw production in its music. It's more raw than a black metal album. But the worst atrocity of all is that there aren't any fucking solos. What kind of a metal band does not have solos in its album? My gosh. It made me so mad that when I was taking notes, I made some misspellings. I should also point out that while listening to this poser music, I was checking the time length of each track on my iPod to see when will it end. Now, even though this album has a good amount of good tracks, it pisses me off that this piece of shit album still exists 14 fucking years later. What the hell were they on? Well, to be honest, there were problems even before the album came out. Jason Newsted had left the band, and James Hetfield went to rehab, which happened before recording even commenced. I should mention that the reason for the raw production in the music was because of the depth of emotion the band had felt, and therefore decided not to mess with it. So it's pretty understandable why the band would do this and give us this inexcusable abomination they call an album. Say what you will about Megadeth's Risk. Yeah, it's a piece of shit album too. But at least it has solos, no trash cans, and a better mixing production than this fucking piece of shit. This is exactly what posers listen to. I need a fucking drink. Who the hell's knocking on my door? Package. That's funny. I didn't order jack shit from anybody. It is for me though. So fuck it. A letter in here. What the hell? It looks like a CD too. For the receiver. Oh no. You gotta be shitting me. They made another Saint Anger 2 years ago. Well, I'll be drunk in a second, so the hell with it. Wait a minute. Holy. This sounds amazing! Yeah, it's probably still shit, but the recording is better. And there are no trash cans either. Oh, the world has to know